Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Scott. I'm a TEL specialist and I support learning technology within the School of Mathematical and Computer Sciences at Heriot-Watt University. And my background is in mathematics, IT and e-learning.
And hello everyone, my name is Tom. I am a mathematician by trade. I also work at Heriot-Watt. So I guess we should maybe start by telling people a little bit about Heriot-Watt and what makes it maybe a little bit different to some other universities. So let me set the scene a little bit. Right, so Heriot-Watt University, we are based in Edinburgh in the UK, but we are a global and STEM-focused university. So we have a lot of STEM-related disciplines. I myself work in the School of Maths, which is the School of Mathematics and Computer Sciences, which is also where Lisa works. We have three main campuses that we work over, the main one being Edinburgh. We also work in Dubai and Malaysia. And the fact that we are STEM focused and we have global campuses, it affects the way we think about assessments, from its creation to its marking to moderation. And in this particular talk, we want to focus on our closed book exams. As those who work in STEM might know, closed book exams is still a very essential tool in our assessment kit, and that is for reasons I will talk about later. When I joined Heriot-Watt a little bit before the pandemic, closed book exams were used very extensively. And what happened then was we would have academics design the exam, which would then be distributed to all the campuses. Each campuses would run their own exams, and then they would grade their own exams, and then a selection of scripts would then be sent back to Edinburgh, like physically transported back to Edinburgh for moderation. And as you may realize, that might cause kind of some logistical challenges. If there are any marking issues that's spotted in the moderation step, it may be very costly to go back and try and resolve them. So that was kind of what happened pre-pandemic. And then, as everyone knew, the pandemic happened. And during this period, Heriot-Watt went to an open book exam model where we would release the exams to students. Students can use the resources that they have, and then they would submit their submissions online. In mathematics and in some of the STEM subjects, there is an extensive use of formulas or technical diagrams as part of the exam. So handwritten submissions is the way to go. We cannot feasibly and realistically expect students to typeset their submissions. So handwritten exams is the way to go, and that can cause some issues with some of the well-known online marking systems. During the pandemic, we also had this condition where anonymity was not required. So students can write their identifying information as part of the submission and then upload for grading. Now, some things that are specific maybe to Heriot-Watt is that during that time, we were transitioning from Blackboard, the learning management system Blackboard, towards Canvas. So that causes some issues during the transition and how we mark. Because of the unique challenges of mathematics and a lot of STEM and handwritten submissions, academics tend to have their own preferences for how to grade those, because our common assessment tools, so for example, Blackboard Annotate, Canvas Speed Grader, Turnitin, they may not be designed for this particular purpose. And we've also had academics who would then download all the submissions and then grade on Adobe, or some academics just prefer to download all the copies, print them off as hard copies, and then mark them physically. So when we want to propose something, we have to kind of take all these into account and say, well, how do academics work? What's the natural workflow? And then on top of all this, we still have to worry about moderation across the different campuses. So, if one campus marked in Annotate and then the other campus printed their copies and marked, how do we then collect all this information and moderate in a sensible manner? Oh, the down button works. So this is where we came in and say, well, we have this tool that might be helpful. and as a mathematician, right? I mean, I come up with a theoretical solution with theoretical benefits, and then I come to Lisa with the real problem of, how do we make it work? So a quick kind of a spiel about Gradescope, I guess. Gradescope is designed for STEM marking and one of the biggest advantages is that it accepts handwritten solutions. Students can handwrite their submissions, they can take photos, they can scan it, and then they can upload this sequence of photos. And because it's online, all students from all campuses, they can upload to the same platform. Academics from all campuses have access to it. And just because of the nature of the assessments of mathematics assessments, instead of being essay-based, it's usually a sequence of short questions. So then that allows the marking to be distributed by question rather than by campus. So that means, I could take questions all the odd numbered questions, and my counterpart in Malaysia can take all the even numbered questions, and then we can grade that way to kind of improve the consistency across the grading. And there are other kind of benefits as well, such as, we can give externals access to all the scripts. There's no need to sample, or rather they can actually sample from the full set rather than selected by the academics. There are other similar platforms. So Gradescope is not unique in this sense. So what we're about to talk about is not unique to Gradescope. So some universities may prefer another thing called CrowdMark, which is a similar concept. There are other similar platforms out there as well, but you can, to a certain extent, you can apply a lot of the things that we speak about now to things like Turnitin, to Blackboard Annotate, to SpeedGrader as well. So we'll use Gradescope as our example, but it's certainly not kind of unique. Right. So a couple of things. So this is where the kind of real fun begins. So as a mathematician, I come with a theoretical problem. I see the problem, I come with a theoretical solution, and then the real world hits. So then once we've identified this tool, that's kind of helpful. We then have to start the process of actually acquiring it, and then all the kind of the checks and balances that has to go on behind the scenes. So the procurement, which is a very lengthy process, we have to do it. We have to make sure we are GDPR compliant. So we have to make sure that the data is well protected. We have to then get all the teams on board at the university so that they know what we're trying to do and that they can support us in the right way. And then also because our learning management system is in transition, we have to figure out how the timing of this and how it works relative to the transition. Right. So real world problem, theoretical solution, real world problems. And so this is where I think Lisa would come in and can tell us a little bit more about this. So Lisa, being a Max, or a school-based learning technologist, she knows how this game works. And so this is where I say, hey, Lisa, I have this idea that I think would work, but I'm encountering all these real-world problems. How do we roll this out? So I'll let Lisa take over, and then she can provide us with the real solution.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so in order to progress using Gradescope to mark exams, we needed a proof of concept. So can we create an efficient process that could be embedded within the examinations team, for example? The real benefit of this pilot being led by the school is this is where the kind of expertise lay in terms of subject knowledge, understanding the academic requirements and the actual technology itself. So we had used Gradescope during the pandemic for student uploaded assignments, and we understood how it worked with Canvas. So that is why the pilot was led from within the school. But it was absolutely vital that this was a collaboration with the examinations team, because we really had to understand the existing process so this could just slot in and it wouldn't be something that was completely, lying out with everything else. And we needed to ensure a smooth transition as possible in the future. So the pilot consisted of 3 stages. We started in December and we started pretty small. So we just wanted this as a proof of concept. So we started out with 6 courses. We needed to make sure we had courses from across each of our disciplines, so mathematics, actuarial, maths and statistics, and computer science. We had some courses that was a single course with, a single campus with a single marker, and others that were taught across Edinburgh, Dubai and Malaysia and had, up to 4 people marking it. And the student numbers in this pilot range from between 50 to 300. So it gave us a good sample size. I'll go into further detail about the pilot shortly. I'm just going to, the next two slides are just going to give you an idea of how we gradually expanded the pilot throughout the year. So in the next exam diet in April, May 2023, we expanded to 20 courses just to give us more scope for learning. And we wanted to introduce other students and other staff to the platform. We also included a bubble sheet assignment. So this is something a bit separate. It was used for auto-grade and multiple choice questions. We also expanded to other schools within the university, so engineering and physical sciences, mechanical engineering. And we invested in some new equipment and new processes, and we shared knowledge, and we got support from the Central Learning Technology team just to try and build that institutional knowledge. So is there anything you want to jump in?
No, it's also a good point to remember too. As part of this pilot, actually, Lisa developed this training course for academics. So for me, because I've used this platform before, everything seems obvious to me, right? Typical academic speak. But for someone who's new to the software, it can be quite intimidating. So Lisa created this step-by-step guide on how to use Gradescope and to kind of see at every step what academics should do. And I think that started during the pandemic when there was open book assessment.
That's right.
And then you updated it for the exam.
For the exams,
So that's also one way we were supporting academics as well as they were being introduced and familiarized with the system.
And in the most recent exam diet we had in August 2023, this was the reset diet. So it was a similar number of courses to the previous two diets, although there were fewer scripts because it was just the reset in students. But it gave us a really good chance to kind of really refine our processes and check that everything was going to run smoothly. And the exam team had a little bit more time during this stage, so they shadowed this stage of the pilot. So going forward, we'll be able to work with them to kind of make a really smooth transition. So a process is scalable and can be adopted at scale. So what was this process? So we wanted to keep it as similar to the existing processes. So all the exam paper production, that had already been done in December for the first stage of the pilot. So we wanted to keep that exactly the same. So in addition, we just produced an answer book for students to write in. We then create the assignment on Gradescope, and then we generate the bespoke answer book printouts. So during the exam, it's very similar for students. They would just complete the cover page with their identifying information, but within the exam book itself, it had specific pages to write each question on. So the top of the page was labeled with the question numbers, and they would write their solutions. They would write their solutions there. And that was really to try and take advantage of horizontal marking. And I'll come back to that later. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. As an academic, this is something that was not obvious to me when I was going through this process, is that, in order to make life easier for the central teams, we had to create this process in a way that mimicked your typical closed book exam. So what is the fewest changes? What are the minimal changes we can make so that the workflow can still so it causes minimal disruptions to the workflow. And this is something that well, it was not obvious to me. Maybe it was obvious to Lisa. So this is where where it became really valuable to actually to speak with Lisa throughout the entire process about, well, what is needed from the academic side, what are the restrictions on the central side to kind of to get this workflow going.
So that, again, that's why it was important to work with the exam team to really understand their processes and not come in with a solution that just wouldn't fit in with the existing processes. So we talked about during the exam. So once the exam has been finished, we count up the scripts, cut off the corners to remove the staples. We scan in the scripts and upload them to Gradescope. And then at that point, the academics can just go in and start marking.
So after that point, it was basically what happened during the open book exam, where the academics who have done this during the open book exam era can then come in and say, well, it's still the same process.
It's still the same process for them as well. So the answer book template was absolutely key. So this is actually something that I needed a solution. I needed Tom's help for because he's the expert in LaTeX. So we really wanted to benefit from horizontal marking. So we needed a template that specified where students would write their answers. And then normally in Gradescope, this would be a question with a box underneath it for students to write their answers. But because the exam papers had already been produced and we didn't want to have a templated exam, we needed an answer book that would do this. So to keep things simple, we designed the flexible answer book, and Tom created this template in LaTeX using overleaf. But he created it in such a way that it was easy for anyone to customize without any knowledge of LaTeX whatsoever. So we could simply come along, enter the course details, specify how many pages, how many questions the exam had and how many pages would require for each question. And we could also add some additional blank pages at the end of the booklet, just in case students write more than was expected.
Yeah. So I think this is a very interesting point here with this answer book template, because it intersected on several different things, right? We had to, we want to leverage the advantages of this platform. We had to create something that was almost similar to what the central exam team uses for a non-Gradescope exam, and we had to do it in a way that didn't require the academics to then rewrite their entire exam.
Yeah.
And so this is a very, I guess, this is a very nice example of how all these things intersect and how we can find a solution that kind of fits all three sides of this puzzle.
So another nice thing about the answer book, so for some of the exams, the course leader wanted to include some graph paper, or they had a particular diagram that they wanted to annotate. So again, I came to Tom with this problem, and he came up with a solution that meant you could just add an extra PDF and embed this within the template, so it still contained all the header information, all the footnotes, all the page numbers, etc. So yeah, really cool template. And the fact that it's an overleaf means that we can then share it with others, with the exam team, or with course leaders if they want to use this for midterm tests, for example. So as Tom's already said, the result and answer book should be very familiar to the students, but we found during the first phase of the pilot, students still tended to maybe write their answer in the wrong place, or they would, just continue on question 1, then write answer question 2 without skipping on. So we produced a short video to explain the answer book to the students, and this was created in Canvas Commons, so we could just embed it in every course that had one of these types of exams. And we found after that the students were more likely to write in the right place. And again, it's just a learning process for the students to get used to doing this. So one of the features of Gradescope that we used is called labeled printouts. It's a beta feature, but it allows you to produce a single PDF for each campus to print, and it adds QR codes at the top of each page. And these are labeled with individual script number and page number. Now, this is really useful just in case you've got a whole pile of scans and you accidentally drop them, mix them up, or you end up with an extra page and you're not sure where it belongs to. Having these numbers on the top, it really, really helps. Thankfully, we've not really had to use it so far, but if it were to occur, I'm told that you can upload it to Gradescope in any order and it will reassemble all the pages for you. So yeah, another cool feature.
But this also kind of gives a motivation as to why we need the answer booklet in the first place. Why couldn't we just use the default university issued answer booklet? Because as soon as we scanned it, as soon as we kind of cut off the attachments and pages get shuffled, then we have no idea to kind of reassemble the scripts. And so this gives motivation as to why we wanted to create our own answer booklet as well.
So in order to for the scripts to be scanned, the staple needed to be removed, and we went through various inefficient methods of doing it, from using like staple removers to cutting off the corners. In the first exam diet, we had some small paper trimmer guillotines. You could maybe do one script at a time, and yeah, it was just it wasn't efficient at all. So we knew that during the second phase of the pilot, we needed something a lot more scalable. So we chatted to colleagues in our academic networks at other universities, found out what solutions they had come up with, and thanks to the University of Durham, we purchased this large heavy-duty guillotine that could cut like 400 pages at a time. And what was really neat was, if you can see in the second picture there, They had some 3D printed blocks that they used, like a wedge to kind of hold the batch of scripts at a particular angle, so you could just get a really consistent cut on the corner. And they were very kind and shared them with us. We printed them off, and now, yeah, we've got a much better solution. Okay, so that leads us on to scanning. So the first phase of the pilot, we were just, as it was a proof of concept, we were just using whatever equipment that we had to hand. And in terms of scanning, we just used, our multifunction devices, our photocopiers essentially, to scan the scripts. I mean, they worked fairly well. It's scanned in the scripts, it sent them to directly to OneDrive. However, scanning was a bit slower. Occasionally it would jam and paper would get kind of concertinaed up, and you'd have to reassemble the scripts, start again with that batch. We found out the file size was limited, so if you scanned in too many pages, it would just fail when it's ended to OneDrive, so you'd have to go back and scan it again. And it wasn't easy to check for errors, so if there was if you missed the page count at the end, and if there was pages missing, you'd have to go back down to your office, then open the PDF, and then find out, oh, there's a couple of pages missing, I'd have to start again. So in the next diet, again, we spoke to colleagues at different universities, University of Edinburgh and others, and we purchased a desktop scanner, which was much more efficient, could handle larger batches. There were much fewer jams. If there was a jam, you could just fix it and then start from that exact point where there was the jam. And if there was pages missing or anything like that, you could open up the PDF on the desktop, identify it immediately, and kind of remedy it. And we also located so we had a little station set up. We had the guillotine, scanner, PC, all on the one desk. So we had almost like a little production line. So we could, once we scanned the PDFs, we could actually upload it straight to Gradescope and match it to the students all in the one kind of location. So it made it much more efficient.
Yeah, the scans going to the local directory it's a huge game changer. In the previous diet, what I had to do was I'd scan everything on the multi scanner, and then I'd have to wait 10 minutes for the file to end up in my inbox, and then go to my inbox, check it. If there was an issue, I'd have to come back and repeat the process all over again. Whereas in this, with this desktop scanner, I can actually, once it's scanned, I can look at it straight away. There's no kind of delay. And then if there's any issues, I can actually resolve the issue right there and there. So that for me was an absolute game changer, having this desktop scanner.
So one of the trickier problems that we had to resolve was that of anonymization. So anonymization was absolutely key. It was one of the firm requirements that we had. So, and Gradescope does have it did have an anonymous marking feature, which anonymized the student's name and ID on the system, so on the computer. It would randomize the characters for the students' names. However, the big downfall was it had the student's name written on the exam paper. So it wasn't really anonymous. So other institutions had worked around this by issuing a separate exam number, or perhaps a student's ID was just a random set of characters. In our case, because it was linked to Canvas, it was our short user ID, which contained their initials. So even if we asked the students just to write their ID, it wasn't really anonymous enough. So we didn't have this concept of a separate exam number, and even if we did, we were worried that if someone was to resynchronize the roster, that we might lose that matching. So we kind of came up with a different solution. So in the initial pilot, we removed the 2 cover pages from the script. We set up a separate template that just included the inside pages for the scan. So that would be all that the course leaders would see to mark. But then we had to match the scripts against the ID number. But we could do that fairly easily. It had the QR code on the top with the script number on the top. We could go in, we had the physical copy, or we had the digital copy as well, and then we could match the students to this script number. It worked for the pilot. It gave us a proof of concept that we could do this, but we knew that it wasn't scalable, and we needed to find a different solution for the next exam diet. So we provided a suggestion on the Gradescope roadmap, so they knew where the student's name was, because you draw a little box on the screen and they knew where the student's ID fields were. So our suggestion was, well, if you know where these are, just place a black rectangle over those on the script when you turn anonymous marking on, and that will kind of act like it would redact the student's ID from the physical script. So after putting this on the roadmap, we asked colleagues within Heriot and Out With to comment on our suggestion, provide feedback to Gradescope. We had a meeting with the Gradescope developers to really work with them to understand where the problem was. I think particularly in the UK, anonymous marking is just kind of a standard. It needs to be truly anonymous. So now that Gradescope implemented it, they implemented it in April 2023. So it was just at the very start of our exam diet, and it was a real game changer for us. It removed the need for the workaround, and it meant the script could then be auto-matched to the students.
So yeah, kudos to Gradescope for being so responsive on this front. Yeah, I think we came to them in January, and then they had something, like for us to trial by April or May, like you said. So
yeah, it was awesome. Okay, so but yeah, this, as you said, the success of this pilot really was due to work in collaboration, and I think that's the kind of key takeaway message is not to work in isolation, is to have discussions between academic staff and professional services and really understand the issues and the processes on both sides, so that everyone's requirements are met and understood. And yeah, so like to work with exams team as well to understand their processes, and work with learning technologists to understand the kind of limitations and affordances that the technology can bring. Yeah, it was important to work between institutions and vendors to kind of suggest changes, so that they can really understand the workflows and the constraints and the requirements, and working between institutions. So there's probably a lot of institutions who are all trying to achieve similar goals, but understanding that whilst there's a lot of similarities, there might be differing requirements and constraints. So what might work for one institution may not for another one. So it's really important to understand the differences there. So yeah,
and to kind of share this knowledge too. We are very thankful that the institutions we've spoken to, we're very grateful in terms of sharing their understanding, their wisdoms. And so this is partly why we're here today too, right? Is to help guys say, hey, this is something we've collaborated, we've got these cool ideas, and if it's helpful for you, get in touch with us. I guess as well, and to get in touch with the vendors too. I mean, Gradescope in particular was very responsive when we went to them with the request. They really tried to understand what we wanted to do, and then kind of worked with us to find a way forward, which is amazing.
It'd be great if all vendors could be as responsive, but we also understand. But yeah, I think the challenge going forward will really be to find a balance in terms of the time costs and savings for academic staff, for students, and for professional services. So.
Yeah, and also this was kind of this was also something that we kind of picked up very early on. If as an academic, right, I think this is how things should work. But then in speaking to Lisa would be like, well, at the university or the institute has their own kind of workflows, which is kind of much bigger, or their priorities might be slightly different. And so from there, it was much easier, having understood the requirements, to come up with some common ground that we can work and implement and iterate. And also, I mean, like it's much easier to have these collaborations if I understood their requirements and for them to understand my requirements. So we come up with a way that kind of minimizes work or changes for everyone to create this smooth process. There's also, I mean, this is where I think Lisa really shines, because Lisa is a disciplinary and a school-based learning technologist. So she understands both sides of the game. She understands me as an academic, what are my challenges, what are the kind of niche knowledge that's specific to mathematics that may not be kind of relevant for other disciplines. But she also, because being a technologist, she understands kind of how the university processes work. And I think this is something that Lisa sits in this very valuable intersection that should not be understated, to have learning technologists who understands the central requirements, but also each discipline and each school's kind of the technical knowledge
Mm.
within the school and discipline. So
Yeah.
that's something that I think should be should be stated and kind of kept, I guess, going forward.
Yeah, I think it was really useful because I was, speaking to academics on a daily basis and finding out, what their challenges were, particularly through the pandemic and then the return to on campus. So being based within the school kind of really helped.
I think that's it from us.
Yeah.
We'll just leave our contacts here. If this is something you're interested in, if you have any further questions, please do get in touch with one or both of us, and I think we'd be very happy to chat more about this.